Good morning, everybody. As I promised, I'm gonna start my videos and they're gonna start becoming progressively more and more and more. One reason is because you already know we have extended our school day. So I was just trying to kind of get a feel on, how much I will have to record and when I will have to record. So now that I know I have a lot to record, might as well just start gradually like I like to do. I don't like to overwhelm because I know you guys have other work to do. So today we will be reading Charlotte's Web. Yes, our famous Charlotte's Web. And I know we've started it, but it's such a good book. So this is going to be our read aloud. And our read aloud will consist of questions that I will be putting in Google Docs on your Google Classroom so that you guys can answer those questions. So I want it to be really interactive. I just don't want it to be up here, blah, 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 and you all just sitting at home watching. No, I want it to be fun. I will be incorporating other things such as how to, like crafts and stuff, just so we can kind of remember how to, buy our time, because we're all in the house and we're all, probably have cabin fever. That means we're just tired of being in the house already, even though we just kind of have to be in the house. So anyway, I'm going to read chapters 1 and 2 of Charlotte's Web, and I will be posting those on your Google Classroom. So here we go. Before breakfast. "Where's Papa going with that axe?" said Fern to her mother as they were setting the table for breakfast. "Out to the hog house," replied Mrs. Arable. "Some pigs were born last night." "I don't see why he will need an axe," continued Fern, who was only 8. "Well," said Mother, "one of the pigs is a runt. It's very small and weak, and it will never mount to anything. So your father decided to do away with it." "Do away with it?" shrieked Fern. "You mean kill it just because it's smaller than the other pigs?" Mrs. Arable put the pitcher of cream on the table. "Don't yell, Fern," she said. "Your father is right. The pig will probably die anyway." Fern pushed out her chair away from and ran outdoors. The grass was wet and the earth smelled of springtime. Fern's sneakers were sopping by the time she caught up with her father. "Please don't kill it," she sobbed. "It's unfair." Mr. Arable stopped walking. "Fern," he said gently, "you will have to learn to control yourself." "Control myself?" yelled Fern. "This is a matter of life and death. What are you talking about, control myself?" Tears ran down her cheeks. She took hold of the axe and tried to pull it out of her father's hand. Brave little girl. "Fern," said Mr. Arable, "I know more about raising a litter of pigs than you do. A weakling makes trouble. Now run along." "But it's unfair," cried Fern. "The pig couldn't help being born small, could it? If I had been very small at all, birth, you would have killed me?" Mr. Arable smiled. "Certainly not," he said, looking down at his daughter with love. "But this is different. A little girl is one thing, but a runty pig is another." "I see no difference," replied Fern, still hanging on to the axe. "But this is the most terrible case of injustice I've ever heard of." A queer look came over John Arable's face. He seemed almost ready to cry himself. "All right," he said. "You go back into the house and I'll bring you the runt when I come in. I'll let you start it on a bottle like a baby. Then you'll see what trouble a pig can be." When Mr. Arable returned to the house half an hour later, that's 30 minutes later, he carried a carton under his arm. Fern was upstairs changing her sneakers. The kitchen table was set for breakfast. The room smelled of coffee, bacon, damper plaster, wood smoke from the stove. "Put it on the chair," said Mrs. Arable. Mr. Arable set the carton down on Fern's place. Then he walked to the sink and washed his hands and dried them on a roller towel. Fern came slowly down the stairs. Her eyes were red from crying. As she approached her chair, the carton wobbled, and there was a scratching noise inside. Fern looked at her father. Then she lifted the lid of the carton. There inside, looking up at her, was the newborn pig. It was a white one. The morning light shone through the ears, turning them pink. "Here's yours," said Mr. Arable, "saved from underneath death, and may the good of the Lord forgive me for this foolishness." Fern couldn't take her eyes off the tiny pig. "Oh," she whispered, "oh, look at him. He is absolutely perfect." She closed the carton carefully. First, she kissed her father, then kissed her mother. Then she opened the lid again, lifted the pig out, and held it against her cheek. At that moment, her brother Avery came into the room. Avery was 10. He was heavily armed with an air rifle and a wooden dagger in the other. "What's that?" he demanded. "What's Fern got?" "She's got a guest for breakfast," said Mrs. Arable. "Wash your hands and face, Avery." "Let's see it," said Avery, setting down his gun. "You can call this miserable thing a pig? That's a fine specimen of a pig. It's no bigger than a white rat." "Wash up and eat your breakfast, Avery," said his mother. "The school bus will be along in half an hour." That's 30 minutes. "Can I have a pig too, Pop?" Avery asked. "No, I only distribute pigs to early risers," said Mr. Arable. Fern was up at daylight trying to rid the world of injustice. As a result, she now has a pig. A small one, to be sure, but nevertheless a pig. It just shows what can happen if a person gets out of bed promptly. Let's eat. But Fern couldn't eat until her pig had a drink of milk. Mrs. Arable found a baby's nursing bottle and a rubber nipple. She poured warm milk into the bottle, fitted the nipple over the top, and handed it to Fern. "Give him his breakfast," she said. A minute later, Fern was seated on the floor in the corner of the kitchen with her infant between her knees. Teaching it to suck from a bottle, the pig, although tiny, had a good appetite and caught on quickly. The school bus honked from the road. "Run," commanded Mr. Arable, taking the pig from Fern and slipping a donut into her hand. Avery grabbed his gun and another donut. The children ran out to the road and climbed into the bus. Fern took no notice of the others in the bus. She just stared out the window, thinking of blissful world it was and how lucky she was to have an entire charge of a pig. By the time the bus reached school, Fern named her pig, selecting the most beautiful name she could think of. "Its name is Wilbur," she whimpered to herself. She was still thinking about the pig when the teacher said, "Fern, what's the capital of Pennsylvania?" "Wilbur," replied Fern dreamily. The pupils giggled. Fern blushed. I'll stop there because, as I said, we've read these already. So I just want you all to kind of remember. And we're also going into chapter 2. Remember something. Mr. Arable told Avery as he came downstairs. Avery said, "Dad, can I have a pig?" He said, "No, those are for early risers." I want you guys to, on your Google Docs, to tell me what it means to be an early riser. Okay? Stay tuned. I'll be up for part 2 in a second.